Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, Salamat Datan, Namaste, and Ni Hao. Good evening and good afternoon wherever you are. Very grateful in ARTDO International to welcome all of you for attending this special webinar. Today, our topic is strategic thinking, which is the other face of the coin of the organizational and pragmatic type of critical thinking that can help us to see the big picture, planning ahead, and putting thought into action, as well as gaining competitive advantages in our businesses. I will not introduce our distinguished speaker, but please allow me to highlight a close friend who is a board member of ARTDO International since 2015. A man with multiple talents and hobbies is urban farmers, licensed amateur radio operators, researchers in self-healing and mind factories. And also he is active volunteer in local community services. Mr. Vijaya Kumar is a former director of Employee Provident Fund Learning Center in Malaysia, and also he is a special advisor on finance literacy for Youth Empowerment Club in Sarawak, Malaysia. Mr. Vijaya is a senior consultant in learning and development. Please, Leader Vijaya, kindly guide us, because you are our moderator today, in order to benefit and enjoy and maximize the learning of the reputable speaker. Mr. Vijaya, the microphone for you.
Thank you, Dr. Atif. Thank you very much for your kind words. Good afternoon, good evening to each and every one of you. I really am very thankful that you all took time to attend today's leadership and coaching series, which is entitled Strategic Thinking. This event is uniquely created as a service to ARTDO International's members and to our specially invited guests. As Dr. Atif said, greetings from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. A few words before we start the session. This session is about 1 hour to 1 hour and 15 minutes. We have two distinguished speakers. Each of them would be speaking 20 minutes each. This will be followed by a breakout room, which is for 10 minutes. Each group will have 7 minutes to discuss the topic that is given, and each group will report back for 1 minute the summary of what was discussed. We also have included a Q&A session. I would like to thank participants for sending in the questions. So that will be for 10 minutes, and time permitting, we will also take active questions direct from the participants. While we are going on the session, if there are any questions, feel free to put it in the question box. And as a friendly reminder, it would be nice if everybody remembers to mute so that the speakers can have the full mic to themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, a brief introduction to strategic thinking. Way back 25 years ago, strategic thinking was a very big thing. Today, it's a crucial competency for personal development. No more for CEOs, everybody is a strategic thinker. Today, I find so many types of thinking. Dr. Pramod, we have critical thinking. Eric, we have creative thinking, we have design thinking, and of course, my personal favorite, overthinking. Okay, so let us now move on to introduce our distinguished speaker. The first speaker for today's session will be our Dr. Pramod Shrestha from Nepal. Dr. Pramod has a PhD in engineering management from the University of Alberta, Canada. He's also currently the professor from the Institute of Engineering, Timor in Nepal. He has over 45 years experience in teaching as well as consultancy in engineering, education, and training. He was a consultant for World Bank, Asian Development Bank, UNDP, and other bilateral organizations, and has done consultancy over 12 countries in the region. His interest in technology, management, and transfer in strategic management and strategic thinking, technology disruption, and quality management is something very remarkable. Today, Dr. Pramod will be focusing on strategic thinking from a theoretical domain And his motto for today is the 3 C's: content, context, and community. Can we all give a warm welcome to Dr. Pramod? Can I invite Dr. Pramod to commence today's session? Thank you.
Thank you, Bijay. Now let's start my slide from a theoretical domain, and I have listed that as 3C, which is context, content, context, and community. So I'll add up another 3S later on when I go. Now, when I look at, I'll take you back to 1911. And now I'll take you back to Thomas Watson Sr., who is the founder of IBM. He started as a sales manager in National Cash Register, NCR, in 1911. And he was a salesperson. And in a meeting with his sales officer, they were all saying that I have problem in this, I have problem in that. Then he said, you see, to solve every problem, the best thing you can do is to think. And that became the motto. Later on, he went to CBR, which is Computing, Tabulating, Recording Company, CTR, and he was the general manager. Then he became, in 1924, the founding chairperson of IBM. So well, he was having this sales meeting in 1911. And he said, when he heard that everyone, the salesperson, were having problem in this area, that area, he said, I quote, "The trouble with every one of us is we don't think enough." Knowledge, he said again, knowledge is the result of thought, and thought is the keynote of success in the business, unquote. So, and that has become at IBM the key element of its culture. And I think it has become an important factor for its name and fame. And Watson Sr. encouraged radical thinking, you see. And there was one disruptive thinker. At that time, if he was disruptive, or if she was disruptive, he would have been out of the company. But then Watson Sr. encouraged disruptive thinking. So I'll take you back, and I think we have to learn from way back in 1911 what the founder of IBM said, and that is still the logo, and you can see that the logo is still there up. And Nicholas Butler, the president of Columbia University, said way back in 1937 that all the problem of the world could be settled easily if we were willing to think. So with that, let me start. Let me start my presentation. First, I would talk about my epistemological assumption and my understanding of strategic thinking. Then I'll highlight a little bit about the pattern of strategy development, starting with a very status quo to this transformational pattern. Then the major portion will be, there'll be two major perspectives on strategy, which is deliberate and emergent. And then I will have, because I'll be dealing with 3C, which is content, context, and community, I'll refer to 6 strategic contexts elaborated by Mintzberg, one of my favorite strategic thinker. Then again, I have my own model of strategy and strategic thinking, which consists of 4 major elements. And then again, my 4-stage strategic thinking development transition model, and then the route from strategic thinking to action, some 6 important questions, and then my concluding remarks. Now, when I go to my epistemological assumptions, this is related to knowledge, this is related to the content. I think that we generally we have an operational thinking in what we do, then strategic thinking. And I believe that strategic thinking should be at the core of our management approach. And another question is strategy an overused or misused word? I think it is. because strategy, and again, it's from Mintzberg, the strategy generally cannot be planned because planning is about analysis, whereas strategy is about synthesis. We can talk back later on. My third epistemological assumption is that when we talk about strategy, we tend to take the traditional view in the first place, that is analytical, and then but then to achieve an objective it has to be practical. So it's not just analysis, again it is synthesis. The fourth one is you see, generally we talk about there's generally a dichotomy. We talk about, when we talk about strategy, we talk about strategy formulation and strategy implementation. But then it's not just analysis and practice, and strategy does not stop and start. It is a continuous process of redefinition and implementation. My fifth assumption again is we have to connect the strategic thinking to result. And then a question again, what limits our strategic thinking? And the last one is, which is very dear to me, is phenomenon events in the real world does not fit a linear model. Generally, we tend to have a mechanistic traditional model based on lateral thinking. Now, my understanding about strategic thinking is like I said, strategic thinking should be actively influenced by 3C, which is the starting point is the content, that's the knowledge, the wisdom. The second point is the context, the situation, because there is no one size model. If you ask me, can you give me a formula for strategic thinking or a model for the best organization? My answer would be no, because the contexts are different. What you do in America may not be the same of what you do in Nepal. There might be some common element, but then situation, context matter. The third important element, which came later on, is this community, the teamwork. About 100 years back, you would have lone innovator, but now you have to work in a team. With this 3C, you can add 3S, which is again strategy, staff, structure, and system. The second one is in today's world, which is volatile, which is disruptive, we have to think in all our understanding the meaning of what is happening from a strategic point of view. Now, it may be long-term, it may be short-term, and it may be at different level. The concept, when Michael Porter started the concept of strategy, people thought that is from the top, but it is, like Vijay said, that it is at different level. It may be at the bottom of the pyramid, like Hamid said. So it has to be there from the bottom of the pyramid up to the top, not just at the top. The third one is we are trying to examine the relations between strategic thinking and the other component of strategic management process, and I've identified around 4 elements of the strategic management process. Now, if you look at the pattern of strategy development, you would see that this is the first stage is where you maintain status quo. That's not good enough in this volatile world. So in the second one, you will see that this is incremental, but is it enough? That incrementalism, it may be enough in some context, but in some context, it might not be enough. So you see a lot of work of incrementalism by Mintzberg. The third one, which is flux, you see, it's again, it's sinusoidal. So we may not even want to have this. The last one, the fourth one, is transformational, and you can call it radical. So in some contexts, you must go for a transformational change. So that's the pattern, the 4 major pattern of strategy development. Now, when you look at the evolution now to this very quickly, you can trace back from Sun Tzu, 500 BC, where it started with war. It started with generalship. If you look at the Greek word of strategy, stratos, so it is generalship. So then for me, 1965, Agor came up with analysis and paralysis. So he said paralysis by analysis. There was a lot of analysis being done. There was a lot of analytical. There's a lot of data driven. It was not the right brain or the left brain. It was only analytical that you use the left brain. The third one is again Michael Porter, which will come. He came up with a very formulated strategy, should be formulated. But whereas Mintzberg, when you go next one, emergent strategy, strategy as a craft, Mintzberg started to say that strategy can also emerge. It's not necessary that it is only formulated. So these are the two major views, I think, of strategy and strategic thinking. Is the first one is the rational perspective advocated by Porter way back at the same time, 1980, where it was very prescriptive and deliberate. Where if you look at the 4-5 P's of Mintzberg, he categorized Porter's as plan and pattern. It was not emerging, it was formulated, you see, as if it was an algorithm. And people associate that with strategic planning. Whereas the rise and fall of, there was a book, article way back in 1994, where Mintzberg came up with the rise and fall of strategic planning. And he said that when you go into strategic thinking, it is different than strategic planning. So planning is programming, it's algorithm. So you plan and there's a pattern. So in the similar time, when Mintzberg came up with his good work on strategy, the first book was in 1983-84, where he came up with this notion of emergent strategy, which is not prescriptive to that extent. It is descriptive and started to talk about position, started to talk about policy, started to talk about politics. So he said, I quote, strategy may not be deliberate. It can be deliberate, but it can also emerge. So that was the punching point from Mintzberg. And Mintzberg definitely is my favorite author in this field of strategic planning or strategic thinking. Now, Mintzberg also identified 6 contexts, because we talked about content, which is the knowledge. And then he said, when you talk about strategy and strategy thinking or management, we've got an entrepreneurial context, you've got a mature context. There might be some industries that are matured. Let's take an automobile industry. When Henry Ford started, his production line had 300,000 workers, and they were producing Model T. Okay, you could say you could have any color but black. You see, black was the color. But then it was a very mature context. Still now, automobile is a very mature context. But there are many industry business that are not mature, that are evolving, that are diverse. So third is the diversified context. The fourth one, which is coming up, is the professional context. IT could be a professional context, very volatile. Fifth one, innovation. The last one, all these 6 contexts identified by Mintzberg are equally important. And this element of how do we manage change? Take COVID. No one predicted COVID, because if you say that strategy is about choice, now how do you manage that? And how do you forecast? How do you manage the future? So this is again 6 contexts identified by Mintzberg. Why it is important, we don't have to say, and I've identified because in this world, I don't want to go back again to Henry Ford, where he had 300,000 employees in his factory. Nowadays, the systems are complex. It's not just a lone innovator, it's a team. The second one is the thinker has to anticipate change and disruption every day. It's not every year. So again, there has to be greater cohesion across operation, across. It's not just functional operation that we're talking about, it's the relationship between these operations. The fourth one is how fast you can adapt. So it's basically adopt, adapt, and leapfrog. These are the three words that are important in this changing, disruptive world. So my four element, if you could see, yes, first you start with strategic thinking. It is not strategic planning. Strategic planning will come later. You have to think. Now, if I can say that, do you have a formula for strategic thinking? I would say no. But like you said, try to be aware of the 3C and be aware of 3S. Second would be strategic planning and formulation, where you will see a lot of write-up. And this was where I think when Potter started his book, he came up with strategic planning in a very mechanistic way. And the third was this area is where we lack. We have good plans. It's done very nicely, but this is an area where you fail. Why do we fail? Why strategy fail? Because here they don't have any connect. See? And then this is also a very weak area that we don't tend to monitor. So again, this is from Mintzberg and Queen's concept, context, and cases. So this is the strategic thinking area. This is formulation where you do an external and internal appraisal. Implementation, you have all these functional, behavioral, and operationalizing strategy. Previously, you talked about functional, but now how do you operationalize a strategy? That is so important. So that part is coming into focus now. It was just functional when Michael started in 1980. So what is strategic thinking? Basically, when I say it has to be a holistic perspective, it's not just the part, it is the whole. You see, previously they talked about the goals. Like say, if I was a strategist, I would say I want to open another factory in this area. I want to have my growth rate increased by 100%. These are just part of your strategy. But then you have to connect all the parts and then come up with a holistic perspective. It has to be intent driven. What do you want to do? What is the impact? What is the outcome? The third one, you have to capitalize on new possibilities. In this COVID, let's say, that can be an opportunity for someone, for many people in the IT industry. So try to, as a thinker, try to capitalize on the new possibility in this volatile world. Again, classical way, linking past, present with the future event. Again, this is linear. I'm not saying that linear is not important, but nowadays events are not linear. They are non-linear also. So that is difficult to manage. Focus on the outcome. Outcome is strategy for me. And like I said in the beginning, strategy may not always be deliberate. It can also emerge. So I believe in emergent strategy. So to manage strategy is to manage or to craft thought and action, control and learning. There's another dimension which is learning, and stability and change. So it's a question of balance. It's a question of balance. Now, this is a model which I am very much in a very developmental stage. So there are 4 stages where you talk about awareness, where there are few strategic thinkers. Here in this case, there are 4, but then they are not aligned. One is at the top, looking at the top, other is left, right. Second stage is promotion, where the people, strategic thinkers have increased. The arrow is number of person or strategic thinker, but they are not aligned. The third is management, where they are aligned to a purpose. And the fourth is, again, you have more aligned strategic thinkers at different level, which I think empowerment, and with empowerment, you have ownership. Empowerment is not enough. The bottom line is ownership. And in this context, I have to tell you one story. President Kennedy in 1962 was visiting NASA. And then because there was a Russian, then Kennedy said that we would be the first one to put an American on the moon, and was asking a sweeper who was cleaning the floor, what are you doing? He said, I'm helping an American to be on the moon. That's ownership from that cleaning me. And that sort of feeling has to be there if you want to be successful. Route 623 W and 3H. Where do you want to be? What do you want to do to achieve that? What are your core competencies? And how do you sharpen your competitive edge? And then what identify your core competencies? And then how do you fit that with the overall environment, both internal and external? And how do you achieve your goal? So I say that implementation-aware strategies fail. So the success is to align both the internal and the external environment. At the end, like I said, planning is analysis, strategy is synthesis. Without strategy, execution is aimless, and without execution, strategy is useless. The strategy is choosing what not to do. Again, from Michael Porter, a very seminal writer. My concluding remark, there are 10 needs. We need, as thinker, we need a new kind of meaning and understanding where people look at the process issue as well as analysis. Then the 3, build on your strategy around these 3 critical content, context, and community, and try to anchor, explore, and extend the meaning associated with 3 C's. Go beyond the dichotomy of strategy formulation and strategy implementation. And the 4th one is there's no best way to create strategy, nor there is a best way, best form of organization. Different forms work in different contexts. We live in a world of contradiction, and strategist thinking is managing contradiction. That's what I think. So try to appreciate and learn the cause and effect and reconcile them for effective action. Evaluate the concept of 3C and 3S and mix them together to effectively and efficiently influence outcome. So 7th one is generally we tend to look at the big issue, but then I think big issues are really rooted in little detail. So you have to manage that little detail also. It's not just the big picture, the little details are important. 8th one, it may not be deliberate, it can emerge, and strategy can form in an organization without being formulated. So here again, you have Mintzberg here, and you have Porter. 9th is the whole and the part, see? So we have to focus on the whole, not just the part. And the last one is try to capture the complete strategy landscape and take a holistic perspective. And at the end, I would say the strategy is about managing contradiction, and strategy is about managing choices. So with that, again, thank you very much for this time. And there are learned strategists, and I'll be happy to take any question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pramod, for that wonderful presentation. I really like your starter. We don't think enough. I think we don't think enough on things that need to be thought, and we overthink things that we don't need to think so much. Thank you for the presentation. Time is running short, so I will now begin the breakout session. The President Ritago will do the rooms now. The time allocated will be 5 minutes in view of our time, and we will select 2 or 3 groups to make a 1-minute summary presentation towards the end. Total time 10 minutes. Rita, could we do the breakout rooms?
Can you please give the question? Read out the question.
Okay, the question is, why does strategy sometimes fail?
I've also put it in the chat, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm ready with the breakout rooms. So we'll give about 7 minutes. Is it okay?
5 minutes.
Okay. All right. So reasons why strategies fail.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we're going to start the breakout rooms. Yeah. So I'm going to open the rooms.
Okay.
Okay, rooms are open.
Hi, I'm Mr. Menon. How are you?
Yeah, good. I'm Zorai.
Glad to meet you.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very interesting talk.
Yeah. Where are you from?
Yeah, I'm from India.
Namaste.
And namaste.
Yeah, welcome. Okay, our question is why the strategies fail. So now
Yeah.
we are very glad that Mr. Vijay Kumar is with us also. So maybe he's observing because he is a moderator. So, but let us discuss.
Thank you, Dr. Atif. I only saw two of you, so I thought we three of us would probably make a better decision. Since we have short time, for me, strategy fails for two reasons. Number one is no ownership. Okay, when we do strategy in an organization, normally we feel it's management, not ours. So the first point is lack of ownership of the strategy across the organization. Point number two is strategy is not cascaded at all levels. They think strategy is a management job. It doesn't go to the shop floor. So these were the 2 points that I would like to contribute. Thank you.
Excellent. Also, one of the things that also I'd like to contribute, maybe there is lack of focus in planning, and also there is some financial inaccuracy. And sometimes they are planning without proper sufficient data.
Yes, good. Can we invite Lillian? Hi, Lillian.
Hi. Hi, Vijay.
Hi.
My contribution is that some people doesn't know how to execute what has been planned. Probably they're not skilled enough to execute the plans, or they were not part of the planning process. They were not involved in the planning process, so they didn't know the spirit or the purpose or the reasons why those strategies are being laid out.
Excellent.
I would like to invite Haji Rashid. He's my mentor. Every morning he will send me a word of inspiration. Thank you, Haji. Thank you for joining.
Yes. So all our secrets out in the open now.
Yeah, he is a very great thinker.
Oh,
so Haji Rashid, please share your wisdom.
Oh my God, that's a very tall order for me. Okay, I would say maybe two major points. One is politics get involved. Sometimes they override everything. Whatever you plan, whatever you want to execute, politics get into the way, and there are a lot of also some self-interest. There are interest group involved in the strategic thinking or strategic planning. So they maneuver and they manipulate and have their way, and that is where it can result in some of the strategy fail.
My name is Zorai Menon. I'm from India. Yeah, I would like to add on to what you said. It's very very to the point. Yeah. So there's a vision which has not been percolated, all across in all the levels. So unless until the team is connected to the vision, it's not so likely that the strategy can be implemented. The second one is in my opinion, the shifting of the goals from the long term to the short term, because presently, especially in the COVID times, we can see that each situation is dynamic. So with all that, what happens is like the focus generally shifts from the long term to the short term, and because of this also, there are chances that the strategy may not be seeing the light. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Dr. Atif, I noticed that you were writing down some notes.
Yes.
So could Dr. Atif just can we select Tuan Haji to represent our group? Is it okay with you, Tuan Haji? But we'll get Dr. Atif to read out the main points. You just pick 1 or 2 points, Haji, and then if they call us, then you be our strategic leader. So maybe Dr. Atif just summarize in point form. So Haji Rashid has got something to talk about.
Yep. Actually, it's unrealistic goals or lack of focus in planning, and complexity and lack of focus also, lack of ownership, not all levels are involved in the strategy, and financial inaccuracy, and not able to execute also the plan, and people are not involved in planning processes, and planning is with insufficient data, and undefined team roles and responsibility, politics and self-interest and manipulation plus conflict of interest. Teams are not connected to visions, and shifting of goals from long-term to short-term.
Thank you, Dr. Atif. I think we will give Haji Rashid some time to go through, and I think we all agree that he will pick the best of three and then present if we are called, because of the time. So thank you very much. We will now go back to the main room. Meanwhile, Tuan Haji will have some time to put his thoughts, what he wants to pick and what he would like to say. So we need to give him his strategic time. Thank you.
Okay. The strategy.
Meet you all. Thank you very much, Lilian.
Yes.
Thank you, Menon.
Thank you,
Dr. Atif.
Dr.
Thank you,
Atif.
Haji Rashid. So we all go back to the main
Thank
room.
you, Vijay.
And if we are called, the man of the day is Tuan Haji Rashid. Thank you.
I'm closing the rooms now. Vijay?
Thank you, Rita. Yeah,
Okay.
most of them have completed.
Okay.
Good timing. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for the breakup group. I think we had a very good discussion. In view of the time, we would get 2 groups to volunteer. To save time. Can any 2 groups volunteer to share? You're given 1 minute to summarize the points.
Okay, can I volunteer? Group 1?
Yes, Tuan Haji. Most welcome.
All right, so we only have 1 minute, so let's go. So some of the points that we mentioned just now was that there was lack of focus in terms of the planning, and then a lack of ownership in terms of taking ownership on the vision and mission. Also, financial insecurity was one of the points mentioned just now. And one of the major reasons not able to execute the plan for whatever reason. There could be a host of reasons there. And then the role and responsibility was not clearly defined in terms of the people on the ground. And also conflict of interest, politics get into way, and then there are a lot of interested group coming into play, and somehow the strategy was distorted. Of course, there's this what we call the cognitive dissonance when you talk about the implementation of the strategy, and not able to connect between the vision and mission of the strategy, and also the dissonance between the long-term and the short-term strategy. It was not connected well between the long-term and the short-term strategy. I think basically those are what we mentioned just now. Unless anybody from my group would like to add to some of the points that I mentioned.
Thank you, Tuan Haji Anwar Zakaria from Malaysia. Thank you, sir, for volunteering. Can we have another group to volunteer, please?
Can I volunteer from group 7?
Yes, Tana Velu from Malaysia. Nice to see you, madam.
Nice to see you too. Okay, in our group we had Miro and Ike and also George, but it's too bad George, we couldn't hear him. What we summarize is that in the first thing is we have to have why it fails, right? So we have the data, the resources are insufficient, the data collected is not proper. So, and I mentioned that we also need to focus on problems to solve the problems. But overall, it fails also in terms of poor communication. Whatever the strategy is not properly communicated, it's an insufficient communication. And also that in terms of resources, as Myra has mentioned, in terms of resources, it could be lack of resources and also lack of commitment in order to like the ownership, lack of commitment for them to own it and get it done. also suggested that in terms of the goals are conflicting goals. They're not set, priorities are not set right. That's part of it that we have concluded.
Thank you so much, Tana Velu from Malaysia. Thank you very much. Well summarized. And then we shall now move on to the Q&A session. We will begin with questions that have already been forwarded to ARTDO. Dr. Pramod.
Thank you very much, Bijay. I will take question 5, how to inculcate strategic thinking as a culture in the organization. And I want to go back to 1911, IBM. Now, IBM is not doing well now, but still, it's an icon in terms of our sort of living. So now what I would like to say is initially we thought that strategy would start from the top. But nowadays, like I said before, it has to be at different level. We may talk strategic level, operational level, or tactical level. Everyone, now that might be a little bit difficult to comprehend, but then that sort of responsibility should be with everyone. Now, this culture of thinking should be inculcated, like with Thomas Watson Sr. If that is done by the leader, then people will think they should make mistake. Another good example is innovative culture is 3M. You are encouraged to fail, and 30% of the employees are given time, paid to fail, to think about new things. So this is a culture that has to permeate from the top to the bottom. And the second part is, again, I would say a thinker at all level should look at the whole part, not the whole element, not just the part. The thing is, like I said, when you talk about strategy, we have different elements. So we confuse goal as strategy, strategic thinking. It's a part of strategic thinking, okay? This is not strategic thinking, it's a part. So try to connect the part with the whole. That is a culture which I think should emerge in all the organizations. Thank you very much. Because we don't have time. Number 3, what is the biggest challenge to strategic thinking in this COVID? It's basically how do you manage disruption? And I would say that to manage disruption like COVID, someone has come up with the concept of 3 R's, where you talk about first you respond. That's a short-term strategy. You respond immediately. Then the 3 R: respond, reset, and rebound. These are the 3 R. You respond immediately. That could be medical. Then you reset. You like resetting your time. That could be again short to medium term. And then you rebound. You rebound back better. So think about the 3 R's of respond, reset, and rebound. And the last one is, again, like I said, it's adopt, adapt, and leapfrog. So if that is the sort of motto, I think you can manage any disruption. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pramod. In view of the time, we will have to just invite speakers to summarize today's presentation in 2 minutes, followed by Dr. Pramod, the key message of your talk. Dr. Pramod, if we can have in 1 minute.
Yes, less than 1 minute. I think from our discussion, I feel that there is a need for a new revigorated meaning of strategy that would talk about sustainable development and a resilient sort of outcome. That's one. Again, the second point is we have to go beyond this dichotomy that has been going on for the last 30 years about strategy formulation and strategy implementation. Let's go beyond that. And there is no best way, I would say, from my experience. There is no best way to create strategy, and there is no best form of organization. Different forms work in different contexts. So try to think of the 3C, 3S, and the 3R, and let's have a common dream of coming up with a sustainable, resilient strategy for the people. Thank you.
Excellent, Dr. Pramod. And okay, I think time's up. We only have one question. Before I hand back to our CEO, Dr. Atif, I would like to thank all participants. Thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you, speakers, for your wonderful presentation. I really admire the clarity of the message and especially the simplicity. I would like to thank Haji Rashid from Maldives, who has helped me coordinate all these things at the back end, monitoring my team, Dr. Pramod, and many WhatsApp messages that we have been coordinating. Without further ado, I would like to welcome our CEO, Dr. Atif of ARTDO International, to give his concluding statements for this session today. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Really, we appreciate the great input that we had from our distinguished speaker, Dr. Pramod, and the good moderation of Mr. Vijay Kumar. We are very happy that you are here. I would like to tell you that we appreciate your attendance, the participants, and we hope that also next week on the 4th of September, you can attend also our next webinar, which will be about women leadership navigating to the peak. The speaker will be Dr. Kathleen Ong, the ITD World Senior Director, and the session will be moderated by Dr. Farah Osman, the Magic Vice President of the People. So we are very happy for your coming, and we benefited a lot from the webinar on the strategic thinking, and we hope that we can meet again soon. So Rita, the floor for you.
Because our timing is a little bit out, I would like to apologize to everyone. We actually wanted to end much earlier. So can I just call for a photograph before we enjoy the rest of our Sunday?
Yeah.
Nice.
So it
So
will be in the
cute.
music way.
That's so cute.
Thank you. It's done.
All right, then.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, thank you everyone for coming,
Thank you very much.
and see you again next week. And thank you especially to the speakers. See you next week.
See you. Bye-bye. 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 Take care. Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.